let's see. For our readers and listeners at the Libertarian Republic, tell us a little bit about who Kemo the Blaxican is. For the people that don't know you, kind of give me a little bit of your background.
All right, so I'm a West Coast, LA-based African American / Mexican American hip hop artist and member of the rap group Delinquent Habits.
Mm-hmm. I'm personally a big fan of your style, and I know a lot of that comes from being both a Black American and a Latino American. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? What it was like growing up for you, being both Latino and a Black American, and how that kind of shaped your music and influenced your flavor?
Yeah, so I grew up. By the time I was about 5 or 6, my folks, they split up. And I grew up primarily, I grew up with my mom, and we grew up mostly in Mexican communities. And so spent a lot of time growing up mostly like on the east sides of Los Angeles, including East LA, the Maravilla projects, and did a lot of moving around through the east side, Cudahy, Bell Gardens area. Eventually did the rest of my growing up in a little city called Norwalk. And that's what we dubbed over east side. But during that time, I also had the opportunity to live with my dad, and lived in a couple different places as well. So lived in Long Beach, also lived on the west side for a little while. So I think I got pretty. It was diversified. I got exposed to a lot of different, all kinds of people in different types of neighborhoods and stuff. And so because of that, because of the diversity, I think it really kind of at an early age gave me an opportunity to meet, all types of people from different demographics and different walks of life. And I made friends with, a variety of type folks, So in that sense, I was pretty diversified, although mostly in Mexican communities where I did, in a Mexican household, I did a lot of my growing up with a lot of Mexican influences. And then my stepfather came into the picture, and he was, my stepdad from an pretty young age as well. And he's originally from Mexico, from Guadalajara. And I grew up Spanish as my first language, and English. Well, obviously, there's no way I'm not going to speak English. My mom's bilingual, though. My mom was a Mexican citizen who eventually became an American citizen. I remember when she did that. But again, just kind of a blend. You know what I'm saying? And in general, just got to know all types of people, which let me kind of move within communities pretty nicely.
Kind of like what you said about being a beautiful blend with a beautiful mind, eh?
Yeah, man. I like. It's like to me, it's a beautiful thing. It keeps me in this place where my mind is always on this unified front kind of thing. I'm never just looking out for just myself, when it comes to what's good for the people. When I'm thinking of the people, yes, I want good for all the underdogs worldwide. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Of course, there's Blacks and Latinos, but for everybody, as well, represent. But I seek and I fight the good fight for just the good of the people in general too.
That's right. I feel that. So, the libertarian philosophy is all about personal freedom and living how you want to live, provided that you don't hurt anybody else. So whatever you want to do, live however you want to live, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, as long as it makes you happy. Can you tell me a little bit about your song, That's When She Died? Because it talks a lot about, big government and control, and government trying to control people's lives. And that's really what libertarians fight against. So can you tell me a little bit about what your song was about and kind of the frame of mind that you were in when you wrote it?
Yeah, and that song, I wrote it in 2010 or maybe 2009. It came out in 2010, and it was really like a transitional period of kind of becoming like waking up and from a deep sleep, and just that realization that just the realization of hidden agendas, of monetary motives, things that kind of motivated some of the country's decisions were not always the way they were taught growing up. Growing up, you're taught a certain history, but it leaves out some portions of it, and it leaves out motive and that kind of thing. And after you start doing a little bit of research, it sheds light on why some things, really played out as they did.
Right.
And I think during that time, that's when she died. It was that realization that, like, oh, okay, these kinds of things have been going on in the country, and we were told one story. And a lot of times it's for the good of the people, but a lot of times it's also it's got to be for the good of the country. And there's some, like I think you said before, like, we have our warts, you know what I'm saying? And so it was kind of really discovering some of that stuff and just, wanting to, it was like the death of the certain perception and an opening to another, like just realizing that it's not all as it's been painted to be, and just staying woke. It's not one of those things where you say, you don't want to love you, because I grew up proud American, I grew up being proud to be an American, and I think that's still a great thing to be.
Right.
But it's also just really being truthful with yourself and understanding that the business of government is very complex and can be really ugly at times, all over the place. And just kind of understanding that, so that you're not living with blinders on and going, oh yeah, everything's lovely and everything is done, and for strictly for peace, and everything is that. No, just realize that it's a big chess match out there, and moves are being made, and to be in a better position than your opponent. And countries, we have allies and whatnot, but don't forget that every country is jousting for position.
Yeah.
So therefore, realize that when sometimes help is offered in a particular country, hey, let's put in, let's make water available. Let's do some kind of civil structural situation over here in a third world country. Realize that's not just for the good of that country.
Yeah.
There's going to be some benefit on this side. It's business, and so doing that, there's a business that takes place, and this country gets to go build in that country, and these contractors get to go get the business, and there's billions of dollars that are involved. And that's right. But what I'm trying to say in that is, everybody understand that that's what's going on. And I'm not saying that you have to agree with it or disagree. I'm just saying, don't believe that it's just for the, for the good of that. No, of course, there's monetary gain there. And, we live in a capitalist society. I mean, people are out to, that's how people survive and make money and get really rich. And I understand, that people need to do that. That's what motivates people. But that's when she died, was about that, just coming to that realization, realizing that government, was encroaching and kind of really dictating, as free as we are, we're still very much, under the power of our government. And when they want to pull the plug on some freedoms, they can, as we can see now.
Right.
It's just taking.
Yeah. And then I think too, it's kind of like what we mentioned before. Government is not necessarily the country. Our elected officials don't represent. They're elected to represent us, but they don't always uphold their oath of office, and they don't always act in the interest of the people that elected them. And so realizing, calling them out on their crap, calling them out when they're wrong is fine and well. It doesn't mean that you're anti-American. Because I'm sure you and I both love America very much, but we have a responsibility as citizens, when they're not doing what they promised to do and uphold the Constitution, then we have a responsibility to say, hey, remember who you work for. Remember what you promised.
Right. And that line is blurred. It's so blurred these days where, people feel like they can't really say anything, or they just don't. So it's part of our obligation to, point out some, wrongdoings to our government as well. We want these things corrected. So we need to speak out. Not everybody knows how to do that. They don't know where to go. People don't really read. They don't take action. But everybody also has not everybody is cut out for that. So I think that members of society have different roles.
Right.
If you have a way that you can communicate, then maybe that's your vehicle. And some people do it through art. Some people do it through music. Others might do spoken word, poetry, fashion, and make very bold statements on, garments and whatnot. But it's part of what makes America what it's supposed to be, and that is our freedoms to be able to speak out and call out our government when they're doing wrong.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about your song "Be Free." That also has a lot of very libertarian, freedom-esque ideas, about living, like I said before, living the way that you want to live. And it pulled on my heartstrings. That one really hit me in heart because, it's a happy little tune, but, it's really got some really good messages to it. So can you speak a little bit about that one?
Yeah, Be Free, also written on that same album. I guess I was on that kick, kind of really thinking about stuff like that. And it really comes down, like, as elaborate as the song is, it's 3 verses, 16 bars apiece. It's funky and everything is fun. But it was really, I was thinking about a message to the younger, like the kids, basically. And you saw how the song opens up like, hey, kids, be free. And like, the little kid down. It's basically a fun golden rule song, to put it as simple as I can. It's a golden rule song, live and let live peaceful kind of track that is, the message is basically live as you want, live peaceful, and do what you want, just as long as you don't hurt anybody. If your intent is to get out there and do what you want, but keep in mind, do it while not having to hurt anyone else in the process.
Right.
And that was it. It was a very simple approach to the song. I loved it. I loved the message. I thought it was aimed, to youngsters. I'm not gonna say like toddlers or little babies, but to youngsters. And so we actually went out and did an animated video for it and everything. 10 years ago, So I was just on that kick, man. Just like, hey, man, we got to just be good, live free. It ain't hard to. It isn't hard to do. Some people do want to be involved with everything and everyone else's life, and they get mad because some people live a certain lifestyle or a certain way. Yeah. I think that is, if it's not affecting you, if it's not directly affecting you, you don't have to step into anyone else's life either.
Right. And I say that all the time. There are lots of ways, people live that I may personally disagree with, that I may personally think, there's a better way to live. But if it's not hurting me, as long as it's not directly encroaching on my ability to live the way I want to live, then why do I care? Why would I want government or anybody else to come in and say, well, no, you can't live that way? Because if government's powerful enough to do that, then they can also do that to me and my lifestyle.
Right. And I think that's actually, it's very true. And that's, I think sometimes the big concern, from some people also is that it also has the reverse effect with government in order to impose freedoms for one, make it mandatory for others to live a certain way. So it's like, if they're like, hey, well, we want to give, we want to make it easier for somebody to live a certain lifestyle, therefore you're going to have to adapt how you live in order to accommodate someone else's lifestyle. So that's the wrong approach too, because government is stepping in too much. So therefore, I think that if we kind of police ourselves and be like, hey man, that's cool. If that works for you, that works for you. As long as it's not, I'm not forced to adopt your lifestyle or you're kind of imposing on mine, I don't have an issue. And I think that's where people get very, very sensitive, because it depends on how you see like new laws and stuff that put into place. You're like, but by you putting in that new law, now you're really kind of affecting me because you make something law. But I don't know, man. It's crazy, and it's not something that can easily be summed up. And some people are on the fence, and other people are very one side or the other. I think those people, at least, they're very adamant about their beliefs, and they know exactly how they want it, and they're like, bam, that's how it is. And I don't see, there's no leeway. It's either right or wrong by those beliefs. And some people are very open and understanding on how, how to diversify and be tolerant, I guess, so to speak, of certain things. And I'm literally talking about, like, I'm being real general. I'm obviously, you can tell I'm not saying one specific thing or another, because it isn't just black and white, unfortunately, man. It's just not that simple.
A lot of times there are gray areas, and I try to be the open-minded person that will listen. Even if I disagree, I try to listen so I can understand. And I think a lot of people don't realize that just because I may disagree with my neighbor doesn't mean that I hate them. I can love you and still disagree with you. It's not a requirement to agree with everything somebody says in order to love them. But just being peaceful and trying to understand and bring some unity. But unity doesn't mean conformity. Unify around freedom and individuality. And if you don't want to conform, to live a certain way, then don't. But don't harm the other person for choosing to do what they want to do. Be unified in that. I unify around everybody else's freedom to do whatever they want to do. So that's kind of the approach that I take.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to be. It's easy. It's easy.
It's really not that hard. I think people make it a lot harder than what it has to be.
Yeah, I think they want to fix everything, and sometimes you can't fix everything. And sometimes, there's a thing about eloquence, and it's saying, it's just the idea of saying just say all that needs to be said, not all that can be said, right? You don't have to speak and say everything and everything that comes to your mind and say it all. It's like, really kind of get your thoughts together and just say what needs to be said, but not everything. You can't fight every battle.
Absolutely. Anyone who has listened to your music for an extended period of time will know that you're not really a big fan of the way that America's current immigration policy is. Can you speak a little bit about that and your concerns there? How would you kind of like to see it go?
Yeah, another touchy subject, obviously. Definitely not an expert, but I think, I speak, from a place of, I try to come at it logically, but also there's emotion involved. Being not an expert, I do know that, immigrants are so, it's so deeply woven in American society, period, that what I can tell you is that whatever policies need to be made, or what adjustments need to be made, they should be done with consideration of all American people. They should be done with compassion, some sensitivity, and humanely. Like, just keep in mind those things. There's just, if it's done abruptly and harshly, and a lot of people are going to get hurt. It's just very cruel. And yes, I know it seems black and white. It seems like, hey, if you're here illegally, you got to go. Okay, well, how does that happen? How do you go and just uproot everyone that might have been here for X amount of years, that have roots here now, or people that you do pick up and take, that how are they connected here now in the States? Like, all those things have to matter. It seems like it shouldn't matter, because it seems like you gotta be hard and just be like, hey, you know what? We gotta just lay down the hammer. These people gotta go, and but it isn't that easy. So, like I said, being that I'm not an expert at it, obviously every country has their policies. Things have to be tweaked and adjusted to make them beneficial for the country and make it right. But it should be done with a lot of consideration, like I said, to sensitivity and in a humane way. Like, all those things matter to me.
Absolutely. I think that's really part of the problem when it comes to government. I mean, you can look at any issue you want to. I think government comes at it with a one size fits all solution, and it's not so black and white. And I think you should be really slow, especially when it comes to a policy that's going to have such a wide ranging effect. You know, really think about it and take into consideration all the people affected. You know,
Yeah,
and
and
we
also
are a nation of immigrants.
one thing is we gotta stop demonizing immigrants. You know,
Right.
there's this thing that the demonizing of the immigrant is it just really it just really like causes a lot of fear and hatred and stuff too. So then you're kind of blinded with that, you know, that angry kind of blind anger, and that takes on a whole different approach. You know, that causes a different kind of action. You know, it's
Yeah.
I think it's strange. You know, politics is it's all about position, and so people say things in a fact. It's almost like advertisement. Like it's chosen words. Let me articulate my message in this method by these words, and I'm gonna gain. I'm gonna win votes that way because I'm speaking a language that the core, you know, base that I'm looking for is going to relate to. It's chosen, right? I can choose to say that, right? I mean, I can choose to say Mexico gives us drug dealers and criminals and rapists, and I can choose to say that like that, right?
Right.
Well, any country that has anybody immigrating from any other country could potentially be that, right? But right, so that can come from any country,
right?
But you know, it seems like it's not. If you say it like, "Hey, some of the people that Mexico gives us are not good people. Some of them are fantastic. Like they don't," but that's kind of left out, right? So it's just like this blanket that gets played in people's heads, and it's demonizing all of Mexico. Like any immigrant comes to Mexico is demon, you know, and those are choice words. That's chosen how you choose to articulate that message, but it, you know, it starts to rally ideas and stuff like that. So again, you know, it's something that it has to be carefully talked about. I'm not an expert, but I'm just giving you examples of I guess what I would want is just let's be real, be humane, be sensitive. Don't try to make bold, you know, statements with one big brush and just brush everybody, you know, with one brush.
Right.
You know, paint a true picture. And yeah, the system needs to be fixed, you know, but part of the reason things are the way they are is because the system is that way, right? So it's like fix the system then.
Right.
And don't just blame the people.
Right. You know, that's always been my issue, is that I feel like certain groups of immigrants in particular have been the ones demonized. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault at all, really. It's the broken system. And it's the effects of a broken system that are hurting both the immigrants and America. It's not the people. It's the fact that we have an immigration system where a lot of people don't even know what's going on. You know, and then you have people who try to immigrate here legally, but then they're on a list that takes God knows how long. And it's easier, even though more potentially dangerous, to go the illegal route.
Right.
You know, not to say that that's right, but I mean, if you're from a country that where their government is not recognizing someone's natural rights that all people have, that come from their humanity, why would you not want to go to a country that would? So, a country I mean, if America was in a bad situation, and I'm thinking from a position of my family, if there was another place that I could go where my family could live in peace and try to better that place, why would I not go?
Right. You would try to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
So definitely, I definitely think we're at a point of agreement on that for sure. Let's see. what are some of the biggest cultural and political, possibly either cultural or political issues that you think about going off of that America currently faces? And how do you think that we can address those in the modern era?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I tend to kind of feel right now is just like a growing hate trends. You know, it seems like there's a lot of kind of hate all over. I don't know if it's just on social media, but that kind of bleeds over to the real world, and this kind of hateful mentality is it's contagious, you know. And there's just so much hatred being spewed out of people's mouths and in their social, on their tweets and in what they write, that it's sad to me, you know, these days. And that's a concern. You know, I wish that would, you know, we could dial that back. But just also just like basic moral values, man. It seems like people just good moral values of just being good individuals and being respectful to one another. Those things seem like it's by the wayside, you know. And I think that just kind of getting back to a place where, you know, man respects one another and respects one another's differences is where we need to get back to, you know. Just simple things between right and wrong, understanding what's right and what's wrong. And that includes just how to be kind to someone, how to be respectful. It's very, I say this again, it's very easy to be that, you know, but I think we don't give that an opportunity anymore. There's prejudgment on a lot of levels, and it really takes away that opportunity to just be just a true good human being to one another. It's easy, right? So I guess that, man, I'd like for people to get back onto some kind of peaceful trend, man. Just to be, you know, that's it.
Just don't hurt anybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where our society is personally. I feel that, you know, just because some, you know, particular, you know, people look at moral values and they think, well, that's old fashioned. Well, just because it's old doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or bad. You have to look at it and say, well, is there a reason, you know, why this has worked? You know, just because, you know, it's old doesn't necessarily mean that it's either good or bad by virtue of that. And I think morality is one of those things. You can't have a free society unless you have people that are moral and, you know, treat each other the way they're going to be treated, and be kind and loving and then try to be understanding as much as possible. That doesn't mean that you have don't have disagreements. Of course you will, but never forget the person's humanity and the fact that that person bleeds red the same as you do, no matter what the color of their skin is, no matter what the background is. I mean, that really is instrumental, in my view, to the success of America. If America is going to continue to be a free society, we have to learn compassion and love and go back to those values that made us who we are and remember who we are. I think we've forgotten who we are in a lot of things.
Yeah, well said, man. Yeah, I think you're right. And, you know, what's interesting is that when you really break it down to like morality and coming from like a place of love and just being good, that's across the globe. That's universal. If people, you know, that works for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what needs to be contagious.
Yeah.
You know, it works for everybody. And honestly, you know, and with all religious beliefs too, to be quite honest. I mean, you have cases of radicalism and stuff like that, but I'm sure that, you know, that's not really what, you know, I think most religions all over, they're really coming from this place of good moral value and love base and, you know, just being good to people.
Right.
And so I say that being good should be contagious, and it works globally.
Right. Yeah. Well, going off of that, now you're talking about the love. You talk a lot about love and unity in your music and what you do. Can you talk about what you believe your role is as an entertainer to kind of spread those values and give us that hope? What role do you play in that?
Yeah, I mean, I do speak a lot about it because I feel like that's where we need to be. You know, even though you know, I live in a city that sometimes is not the most loving city. You know, we
Yeah.
have I grew up with my share of experiences that weren't the most loving and heartwarming experiences. But I speak on that because I think that's what I would like to see around me all the time. And my role is apparently, you know, pen to pad, you know, for me to articulate it with words and put it into my music with in my form of, you know, subtle messages is the way that I do it. That, like I said earlier, not everybody has the same job, the same role as an artist or as an individual.
Right.
So me, it happens to come in the form of hip hop music. You know, that's my role, is to kind of preach that without being preachy. I'm not
Right.
trying to be overly preachy. I do mention it
Yeah.
because that's my overall state of. And as of late, not even as of late, you know, even for about 20 years, you know, I've done it with Joint Clothing. And so with Joint, you know, that's the ultimate message. We're all in this joint together. So let's
Right.
get down like that. Live peaceful.
Well, I love the message joint. I really love that T-shirt that you got with the heart. I want to order one of those because it really, you know, not to be.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I saw you got a hat coming,
Yeah.
and you've been patient during this whole COVID thing. It's kind of been delayed with getting it out to you, but I'm gonna hook you up and I'm gonna send you one of those I know what shirt you're talking about, the Only Love shirt.
Yeah.
And I really like that message. And it actually says, "Only love can conquer the demon. Only love
Right.
can conquer the demon." Is what he says on all together. And that'll be my gift to you, man. That's I'll get it for you, and I'll send it your way.
I appreciate that, man. That really speaks to me, and that really touches my heart. I appreciate that, Kemo.
Right on, man.
Let's see. With a positive message that you have, what do you feel like you want your legacy to be? You know, when it's all said and done, when your time, you know, is up. I mean, I know, you know, you still got plenty of years to live, but I know sometimes, you know, we think about that as human beings. When your time in this life, in this form is over, what would you like your legacy to be? What kind of legacy would you like to leave for your children and your wife?
Yeah, I would like, in the end, when it's all said and done, and when that final curtain comes crashing down, this is a man of a beautiful blend, with a beautiful mind, fighting the good fight for the good of the people. Like, that's it, you know, just real simple, man. Beautiful blend, beautiful mind, fighting the good fight for underdogs all over and for the good of the people. That's always kind of been my mission, you know. When you come from a place of struggle, and you try to come up from that without feeling sorry for yourself, you know, just bootstrapping it and working hard, and that stuff, you know, it sticks with you. And I want to be, you know, for my kids to be like, man, my pops worked hard. He was a good dude. And he tried to do good, you know, and he was well blended, well, you know, he had a good mind, and he loved people in general. And that's it, man. Nothing special, you know, not the king of hip hop, not the best rapper in the world, not the best lyricist, not the best this, that. Nah, man, I didn't know I was gonna grow up to be a rapper. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
was just, so in the end, I think I took this and I used this vehicle as a way to get my messages out
Right.
in the form of good time too. So obviously it's laced with good times. I got songs that are just about having a good time, but somehow I try to sprinkle in that good message in there.
Mm. I think that's one of the reasons that I personally was turned on to your music, because I relate to that. And I know there's some things we talked about off camera. I do believe that you and I are connected at the heart on some level, because I identify with the message that you have in your music. You know, I've written pretty extensively about my struggles, because I was born with cerebral palsy. And, you know, I'm 27 and I've been that way my whole life.
Okay.
And that's not the easiest thing in the world to deal with. You know, that comes with its own set of struggles. But I was raised in a way with a set of values that, hey, you know, you're not a victim. You know, this
Mhm.
happened to you and it sucks, but it doesn't affect you as a human being. You have a
That's right.
beautiful mind and you can communicate and you can do, you know, anything that you want to do within reason. And I've kind of taken those values and pushed forward. And I love in your music the fact that you talk about your struggle, but you don't sit around, you don't whine about it. You know, you're not, you know, woe is me or I'm a victim. It's like, look, we all have struggle. You know, that's the thing called life. You know, but are
Yeah,
you going to define the struggle or is the struggle going to define you? Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. And I find myself there. If I do go down that rabbit hole of, you know, kind of looking at the the obstacles and you know, things that I might have had to overcome, I always get to that point where I say, well, okay, but I can't just end it on that. Like, you know, there's a way out. There
Right.
is a way out. You got to keep working at it. You got to find that way out. You can't sit back and complain about it and do nothing about it. There's a way. We are in a country with opportunity. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
So you go out there and make the best of the opportunity that we have. And that's not to say that some opportunities are denied. There's truth to that too, but
Yeah.
there's still within reason. There's things that we can do for ourselves, and we got to go out there and kick ass and kind of do the best we can for ourselves.
Right.
Always, you know. And there's a way out, man. My mom, you know, growing up, we didn't have the best of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, you know, the fanciest of things.
Yeah.
But I didn't grow up, you know, feeling, you know, poor, or I didn't know that eating, you know, tortillas con mantequilla or, you know, little bean burritos and stuff was just like, hey, that's like, it was like a poor man's food only. Like, it was delicious to me. Like,
Yeah.
no problem. Eat that. I'll eat that every day. I'm not real picky. It wasn't until later when I started to have maybe a couple more bucks that I started buying a little bit
Yeah.
quality, better quality of that. But before that, it wasn't that it didn't matter. It was just that I'm okay. I could live a simple existence, man. I don't need fancy stuff. Um,
What
I
in
just
in
things
the
get tough.
oh, I'm sorry. In the upside of the struggle, wasn't it what you said? You kind of talking to your mom. You said, "How could we miss that, Mom? We never had that."
That's right. And mom, because you know your folks, you know,
Yeah.
time goes by, they reflect and they're like, man, you know, I'm sorry I didn't provide this for you, or I couldn't give you that. And it's like I think to my mom and I'll tell her like, I didn't know any better than like that's I was happy. You
Yeah.
made me happy. What you provided for me, I was happy. You know, I had a mother that cared. I was fortunate to have a great stepfather who cared. I was fortunate enough to still build a relationship with my real dad. You know,
Yeah.
I made those kinds of things work, and I value all those things, and I'm grateful for those things. You know, and even to this day I still struggle. You know, there's things
Oh,
that are very difficult for me still. And trying to provide for, you know, my family and keep them in a nice place and provide a good schooling for them and those things. So that's not easy, you know, but some of us they just keep on battling. You just keep on grinding, man, and you find a way.
right.
And that's it, man.
I love the way you articulate that because I think that there have been times, just to speak to you personally, there have been times where I have been down and like really depressed, and then I put on one of your records, and I'm like, man, you know, I've never met this guy, but he gets it, and you know, now we're sitting here talking about it, and I really feel like you know, now that we're actually speaking, it's like you get it, you know, your struggle is I can identify with that, and it's helped me to
Thank
push forward.
I thank you, man. And, you know, it sounds, I don't know what songs you're talking about, but I would think songs like A
Let it
Little
rain.
Rain.
Yeah,
Like that song, A Little Rain, man, like those are some of my favorites, you know, a song like A Little Rain, a song like Breathe. You know, I tend to gravitate to sometimes slow beats and things like that. I know, and they're not always the best for performing live, but the messages and stuff that I feel went into some of those songs are some of my favorite. Um, and I think that that's kind of the stuff you're talking about there, you know,
it is.
songs like that also. Yeah. It's just, you know, you talked about depression and things like that. I don't ever really talk about it too much, man. But believe me, man, I get into some struggles in my own head, you know, and I get
Okay.
down, and I deal with, you know, things that get me, you know, they get me kind of, they paralyze me a little bit and stop me. Like, it's like, nah, I gotta snap out of that, you know, keep on rocking. And I feel like a relatively young man though too. So I
Yeah.
always look and go, okay, man, you know, God willing, I still got this many years
Yeah.
to correct my wrongs, or if I made a wrong move along the way, you know, okay, well, let's look at that move that you made, learn from it, and pivot and adjust, and let's go. And that's one thing, you know, one of the things that could eat you up, man, and I kind of suffer from this sometimes, is looking back and feeling guilty about things, or regret, and woulda, coulda, shoulda, you know, those kinds of things, they can haunt you for a long time.
Oh yeah.
I think you gotta, you know, it's best to confront them and move on past them. If there's improvements to be made, and let's make those improvements and go forward. And every day is a new day. You wake up and you have the opportunity to improve what shortcomings you might have, and you could become a better person every single day if you want to.
Right. If you want to. I like that you said that, because it's a choice every single day. It's like, I may not be able to control what happened yesterday, and I may not be able to control what happened tomorrow, but what am I going to do today to make my life better? What am I going to do today to try to improve somebody else's life, try to help somebody, to try to love somebody? So
and it takes, you know, you have to exercise at it. You have to work at that, because sometimes it's difficult to get in that state of mind and to be in that positive state of mind. That's why there's life coaches, you know, that's why people, you know, they get with God and look for, you know, more guidance. You need some kind of help with it. It's not easy for everybody. And like I said, I struggle with it enough at times, but I know that my goal is to try to snap out of it and get on that positive route, you know. But yeah, those are some of the ones, man. Those are some of the ones that are deep, you know. Breathe and A Little Rain. I don't know. There's two cuts that I would love to make some strong videos for, actually.
Do that.
Even though they're 10 years old, even though they're 10 and 15 years old, that's crazy. Would do them. It doesn't matter.
But I love what Kemo, is that how you say it? I'm probably butchering the Spanish, but the video.
The Quiero Volar track.
Yeah. I love that video. I love
it. That's from Simple Plan, man. That's from 2003.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's 17 years ago.
I love that. And even though I don't speak a lot of Spanish, it makes me want to learn Spanish, because I feel like I would appreciate the Spanish even more than I already do, because I've always loved, you know, like Latin culture. And I think that's kind of what, you know, personally turned me on to your music, was just, you know, a deep love for, you know, first it was hip hop and music in general, but I've always loved Latin culture ever since I was a small boy. And there's just something about it that, even though, you know, I'm not Latino, there's something about it that resonates with my heart. And I've always loved it. And I love the food. I love the people. And then I heard your music. My dad actually turned me on to Delinquent Habits. And I said, wait a minute. It was actually Return of the Trace. That was the first song I ever heard. And I listened to that, and I said, oh, that's good. I said, when that beat dropped and you hear those horns, I said, that's some good stuff. But the blend between the traditional Mexican music and hip hop, I just thought that was very unique, and I've never seen anything like that. And that's kind of
it's a pretty powerful blend. And even at the time when Tres did first drop, it was even more unheard of. You know, it wasn't, you might hear some renditions of that now a little more, but back then, it was very, very, very unique. And I think, you know, still the way we put it down, and it's still done in just our fashion. It still kind of has this signature sound to it, man. But yeah, man, it is nicely blended together. I really enjoy kind of weaving in the English and Spanish and try to make it seamless, you know, kind of transition from the two languages. But actually on Simple Plan, that was the first time I really started writing complete Spanish songs or complete Spanish verses, or at least songs. I might have done like complete Spanish verses before, but on the Simple Plan album, I actually wrote at least a couple of songs that were all in Spanish, and I hadn't done that before, which was cool because I found it a challenge. You know, my Spanish is not perfect either, even though it's a first learned language, but I think my vocabulary is stronger in English. And so when I was doing the complete Spanish songs, I found it a really good challenge for myself, especially because hip hop in other countries had evolved to where there was a lot more Spanish rap now than before.
Right.
So, and they're big Spanish rappers. So I was like, okay, so Una Copa Más, Quiero Volar, Somos Tres, those songs, I was like, okay, I got to get sick with it because you can't just, you know, mess around and kind of dabble and, you know, and write a complete Spanish song that's mediocre. Now, maybe you can blend in some English and Spanish, and that allows you some leeway. But if you're going to write a whole song in Spanish and you got the rest of the world writing Spanish songs too, that are very, 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 you know, have high vocabulary in Spanish, you got to come with it. So I always did that, where I tried to make anything that I was writing in Spanish, I wanted it to be strong. And at one point, I started getting turned on to like hip hop from Spain, because you know, the Spanish is different from different parts of the world.
Oh yeah.
And you know, the cultures are different, even though the language is still Spanish, but it changes, you know, from South America and Latin America to Spain. It's completely different. But one of the things I started to find with the Spanish rap from Spain was the vocabulary used seemed to be more formal. So therefore, some of the choice words seemed like it was like government, you know, lawyer language, even though there was slang in there. It was just certain words, almost like, oh man, that's like high level vocabulary type shit, instead of doing some like a lot of slang. But I admired that because, you know, I always think, man, if you can really get into some, you know, use good vocabulary, have a strong message, it's something where you don't have to be a gutter mouth, you know, in every line. You could be like, I'm gonna give you some strong words, you know, and I'm gonna phrase this song with some powerful language. You know, I mean, I'm not always nailing that, you know, sometimes I go off and, you know, whatever words come into play at the time that have the best, most impact, or really bring out of the emotion that I'm trying to evoke, you know, that gets put in. But I do remember really getting into some Spanish hip hop from Spain and going, oh shit, this is good. So it influenced me in a way where it even made me take my Spanish songs to another level, you know, try to write stronger.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. For our readers and listeners, is there anything else that you'd like to say to them or say to your fans out there that are listening to the interview?
Man, like always, man, I would just like to give thanks to everybody that's been supporting me over the years and been supporting Delinquent Habits, and, you know, just following our path and staying true to that, you know, real hip hop, you know. And I'm not one to say that, you know, this hip hop is better than the other. I just appreciate that we still have the opportunity to rock and perform live in front of people, and people still, you know, come check us out and care, you know what I mean? And you want to find out, you know, you can find us on Instagram, you know, at Delinquent Habits Music. You can find me at Kemo The Blaxican. Everything is pretty much at Kemo The Blaxican. And we talked about Joint Clothing, and Joint Marca Fina is the brand now. So, you know, look into that. If you like a little bit of that Unity brand clothing, then check out the Joint Clothing brand as well. Check us out.
I appreciate you sitting down with me, Kemo. It's been an honor.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me too, man. And I really appreciate the stories that you shared with me too. And thanks for being a supporter and a fan.
I appreciate that.